welcome back to the HCG Diet Interviews with Everyday People. I have Adele Frizzell with me today. Welcome.
Hi, Rizal.
She's an author, and we're going to talk about her. She has personal experience with the HCG Diet Protocol now, and she wrote a book about it. It's called The HCG Diet Fact and Fiction. You can find it on Amazon. We'll have links to her book in the show notes, as well as I'll just try to right here put like a little picture of it on Amazon of what her book looks like, so you guys can check that out. I just finished reading the whole thing myself. It was excellent, had a lot of really good information, and what we're going to try to cover with you guys today is dispelling myths about the HCG protocol. I see them all the time as well. She has seen them, and they do us a disservice because they change how we perceive the protocol as well, like as far as how we think we're doing on it, which really affects like our mental and emotional state, which then affects the choices that we make on the diet. So anyway, I'm so glad to have you today.
I am so happy to be here.
Yes, and why don't you just give us a little bit maybe of background as far as, I know you've done a few rounds with different types of HCG, which is what we're gonna talk about.
Sure.
Maybe what's your journey in a nutshell so far with like maybe your own personal weight loss?
Yeah. Okay. Well, if I just stick with the HCG in terms of my weight loss journey, I actually did a round of HCG about 5 years ago. I had a lot of trouble losing weight, and I signed up with a doctor, and I got injections from the doctor. Every 2 weeks, I would drive an hour into the city. I would get 2 weeks worth of injections. I would take them home in ice packs. I would inject myself. Every 2 weeks, I'd get a B12 shot for flagging energy. And after 30 days, I lost 17 pounds. So it was amazing to me. I was really elated about the weight loss. I wasn't working out that much then. I wasn't into weight training. I would walk at lunches and hike. That was about it. One thing I found with that, I was on the 500 calorie Simeon's protocol. I had a lot of good energy at work, but if I had to do something physically demanding, like my walks at lunch, I would feel quite tired. And so that was the only drawback, but I was so excited to lose all the weight. And then I slowly regained it over time. I had no plan for when the diet ended. Flash forward 5 years, and I had reached like almost a record high. I think I was 194 pounds.
And how tall are you, by the way, just for reference?
5'6". Yeah.
Okay, 5'6".
Now I'm also quite muscly because I power lift and train. So 194 pounds. I don't think anyone would have thought I looked the 194 pounds, but I could feel it, and I was starting to see the impact in my health. For example, I started getting sleep apnea. My cholesterol for the first time was getting into a bit of a dangerous zone. I was feeling anxious about my weight, like I felt sort of trapped. I didn't want to buy new clothes because I refused to sort of give in to a bigger size. So I just wore shorts and t-shirts, and and I didn't feel good. I didn't feel sexy. My husband loved me and supported me and thought I was still sexy throughout, but I did not feel good about myself. So I had tried as well in that 5 years, and that's actually when I hit menopause because I'm 48. So I crept up, the weight crept up, and I really was at a loss for what to do. I had hired a registered dietitian. I hired a nutritionist. I hired coaches. I researched and read a lot, but I just couldn't seem to lose more than 10 pounds. And then I would gain it all back. So I thought about that time when I did the HCG diet and I had lost so much weight. And I thought, well, that worked. I'll give that another shot. And I'll be smarter this time when the diet is over. So I got some homeopathic drops, and I tried those. And in the first week, I lost like a lot of weight. But then the wheels came off, and I just started almost binging. Like I was so hungry. And every day I would try to go, be good again. But I just couldn't stay on track. So I ended up losing like 7 pounds in 3 weeks on the drops, and then I just gave up.
I was curious also about how many pounds overweight do you think you were when you did your homeopathic round too? I'm curious.
I think I was probably I was 194 pounds when I started. And if I it came down to 155, I'd be about 19 or 20% body fat. So an athletic range. Because I carried quite a bit of muscle.
So kind of like 30 to 40 pounds is about where you had.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, so the drops didn't go so well. But then I couldn't figure it out. I thought, okay, well, I don't know about those homeopathic drops. And I did some research, and then I came across your website, and you recommended certain suppliers for HCG. And so I was really skeptical at this point. But I your website just looks so legit. And I knew people were successful, and I had been successful once on the real HCG. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get the real stuff, not the homeopathic drops. And I ordered some from New Image, but I ordered a 21-day supply because at this point I just thought, if it doesn't work, I'm not going to overspend, right?
Yeah.
Well, it worked immediately. In the first week, my hunger went away. I'm like, okay, this is what they're talking about. This is how it should feel.
Yeah.
And I started losing weight. So then I thought, okay, I need more because I want to keep going because this is working. So I then ordered some from Diet Doc, another supplier you recommended, and they were a little cheaper. And so I ordered oral troches from them. And I lost in total 28 pounds. I got down to 167, and I felt like lean. And
that's awesome.
I felt good.
Was that in your
Yeah.
Was that a 6-week round then that you did, or?
That's right. Yeah. 3 weeks and 3.5 weeks.
Nice.
At the end, I felt like I needed a break. I had been sort of dieting for 3 months, and with the drops and everything. So I just needed to come off and have a break. And I fit in all my own clothes, and I felt sexy again. I felt confident. I felt good socially. I wasn't hiding from the camera anymore.
Right.
That's
awesome.
So that was sort of my journey.
Very cool.
And so I've tried them all. Drops, pellets, injections. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of people. I've interviewed lots of ladies that have done injections and who have done homeopathic, and I respect everyone's choice, but it is true. I do make it clear on my blog that I favor the real hormone myself as well. And it's just because some have it, like you have expressed, that there was just hunger that was not curbed, whereas it was with the real hormone. I have had ladies who've done homeopathic who felt that it did change their hunger. And so I'm not knocking that. But I think for me, it's like, for me, it's more like I wonder about the whole fat to muscle loss ratio with the real hormone versus the homeopathic. That's what I don't have much proof of. And so, so that's why for me, I just feel like, we only have one body. So I just feel like be safe and do, you know what I mean? Try to, if possible, do the real thing if you feel comfortable with it. But anyway, so it's neat that you could compare the two, that you've done both and notice that difference.
Yeah. And speaking to some ladies who have been successful with the homeopathic drops, I mean, they didn't work for me. I understand they do work for some people, but there could be some other things at play there. Like some of those homeopathic drops contain appetite suppressants, or a ketogenic diet is recommended when you're on homeopathic drops. And a ketogenic diet has been shown to actually reduce carb cravings and hunger in some people. So that could be it could be the nutrition part that's more at work than the actual drops, or the drops contain something that is an appetite suppressant. Also, people who have a history of disordered eating, sometimes they don't have the same hunger signals. It's surprising that people can be overweight and not really ever feel hungry, but it happens because they eat the wrong things. And they go on the diet and they eat what they're told and they lose weight. And they never really experience a lot of hunger. So there can be different things at play there.
That's true. And this is just my own little theory too, but I also feel like when you have more weight to lose, typically you can get away with more, kind of in almost all respects, just because you have so much fat that you can afford to lose. So it's almost like, I feel when you're doing, for instance, maybe a homeopathic, or maybe even, you know, the diet without anything, if you were to eat low calorie, you may not notice those negative symptoms as much because you have more, your body is not, you know, but then as you get leaner, your body becomes more sensitive to extremes. I don't know if you'd agree with that. So
absolutely.
yeah,
As you lean out, the hormones sort of kick in, and the appetite mechanism, the appetite hormones kick in, and you start to get a hunger drive.
Yeah. So for those of you ladies out there who maybe for now, if you are comfortable, you know, you're doing homeopathic drops, you feel like it's fine, and you choose to stick with that, maybe just keep in your head that if you start having trouble as you get smaller, that it might be time to transition at that point over to injections or the real hormone. That might be a point where it's starting to make a difference for you. So that's just some food for thought there. So
yeah. It's possible. I mean, if something's not working, you've got to try something
You have to
different.
troubleshoot it. Yeah. Because usually you can.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah. Well, why don't you share with me now, this kind of goes hand in hand, discussing, because, well, first of all, can you tell us what powerlifting is?
Sure. So powerlifting is a sport. People usually picture weightlifting, which is an Olympic sport. Powerlifting is not an Olympic sport yet, but it's trying to get in. And what it is people compete in 3 lifts. They compete in the deadlift, they compete in the squat, and they compete in the bench press.
A back squat, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, you have to share, because I know, like, can you share what your deadlift, your squat, and your bench press is, your 1 rep max or whatever?
Well, so because of my knees and back, I do not compete in the deads and the squats, but I still train. But the bench press is what I compete in, and I've gotten some records in bench pressing. For my age, I should say, there's not a lot of ladies lifting at my age. I'm 48.
Yeah.
So it's fairly easy to get a record, you know, national and stuff.
Yeah.
I need more ladies. I need more competition on the platform. So it's wonderful. It's a great sport. I've always liked lifting heavy things, so it's very satisfying.
Nice.
But my PR is 175 pounds for the bench. And on the platform, you usually do 10 to 15% less weight, because they make you hold the weight. And then when the judge says press is when you get to lift it off. So just that pause is killer. So I think 160 is my best on the platform. So.
Wow. That's just my own personal, I want to hear about that. That's so crazy. That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, I know. I think my bench press is only like, I don't know, 110 or 115, something like that.
You're little. You're little. That's good.
I am little. Yeah, it is good for me. So I tend to like, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've noticed with CrossFit anyway, that like people seem to have genetic predispositions for what muscles grow easier. And for me, it's definitely my upper half. Like my lower half, it's just like, it won't respond hardly, you know? Yeah. But then when I do the upper body stuff, like, bam, I build a lot of muscle. So
me too. And I don't know if that's also your type. Like I'm an apple type. I don't know what you are.
I'm like
women tend to do better with squats and deads.
Yeah, because I'm definitely small waisted, and then I have more hips. But you know, I have a health condition, so I actually think that's why I have issues with the squats. I think my just stuff in my muscles and my joints have been affected. So I think that's more why. But yeah, because I'm like, for how long I've been lifting, I should have a stronger squat by now. But oh well.
But you also do CrossFit, and so that means you're good at a lot of things. But it's hard to be expert at one lift because you do so many things.
No, it's true.
But I think the squats and deads are super important to train because they stimulate growth hormone in the body, which, as we know, helps with aging. It helps with osteoporosis, and it also increases the muscle in your body. So it helps my bench, even though I'm working my lower body. So I never miss out on a squat or a dead day.
Awesome. Yeah. That's good. I know I've been trying to encourage some of you. Actually, some of you have started CrossFit or started out trying some weightlifting because of what we've talked about here on the blog. And I love hearing that because, as Adele mentioned, it can really help with your bone density, or at least preventing it from losing bone density as you age. And I just think it's great. And you can be safe with it. I think it tends to look scary, but
Oh yeah.
It's, you know, for me, honestly, I almost hurt myself more just getting my weights on and off than lifting it. Like lifting it
Yes.
is pretty safe.
It's very, 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 very safe. And you know, those big numbers take a long time to work up to.
Yeah.
So you start off and you just keep
Yes.
adding. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have not been injured weightlifting. I have
That's
been injured crossfitting though.
Yeah, no, it's true. Well, plus
Oh,
sometimes you can do, yeah, you have to know your own body and not push
yeah.
yourself too much. And the times that I've kind of injured myself, it's been because I just pushed too hard, and I knew that,
Yeah.
like, it was maybe a newer movement I wasn't familiar with,
Yeah.
and I
That
shouldn't
makes
have
sense.
kind of gone so hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes, so we were going to talk about HCG for more active people, because you are a different group of people if you're more active trying to do HCG. So why don't you share what trying to follow the original protocol while being active, how that went wrong, and then how you fixed it, like what you did to make it better.
Sure. So do you mind if I define active first?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so active to me is somebody who's not sedentary. Maybe they exercise, or maybe they just have a really active job, such as a mail carrier walking 15 miles a day. So the calorie needs are much greater for us active people. And I really did try to adhere to a 500 calorie protocol. I bumped it to like 650, then 8. And I would crash and burn on my workouts. And sometimes I'd be on the couch actually after. So, and then my hunger just went up huge and became quite unmanageable. So I found my sweet spot to be around 1,000 to 1,200 calories. And so just you know, I walk about an hour a day or so with the dog. And then I weight train every alternating day. So that's 3 to 4 times a week for about an hour to an hour and a half. And sometimes I go for hikes if I'm in an area that I can hike, because I love hiking. I'll do a little bit of stretching. That's about it, you know. So for me, for that, I needed to have at least 1,000 calories. And otherwise I would be driven to eat a lot of food, or I would just crash on the couch. And one time I couldn't get through my workout. I crashed so hard that I had to go and get a Coke next door and drink the Coke, and I felt much better 15 minutes later, and I was able to finish my set. So you know, I've actually like eaten as high as 2,000 calories and still lost weight the next day. Like, for example, if I went for a long hike, I just needed those extra calories. So, yeah, that's kind of what I do. I try to hit my protein at least 100 grams a day. I find that I lose more weight if I keep my carbs below 100 grams a day. As soon as they go over 100 grams on the HCG, I start to stall. And my fats, I don't eat any extra fats. It's whatever fats come through the protein sources, pretty much.
Gotcha.
Other than that, there's really no off-limits foods for me or for my clients. So, and my clients, you know, some of them, they might be at 800 calories, but I'd never go below 800. And I always start them as high as possible to start a weight loss. And when things start slowing down and as they lean out, maybe we start dropping the calories and macros.
That's great. So for you, this is the question I know a lot of people are going to wonder, for those of you out there who have maybe only done the 500 calorie protocol. They always want to know about weight loss. So it's like, well, if you're eating twice as much or more,
yes,
are you losing half the weight? Or so maybe share that.
Yes, sure. So for me, in 6 weeks, I lost, I would say I lost 21 pounds because I had this 7 that I lost on the drops.
Gotcha.
So that was half a pound a day. Not too bad. I mean, I'm 48. I'm going through menopause, and I have Hashimoto's. I'm hypothyroid. So the expectation is about a half a pound a day on average. Another woman that I've coached with HCG has tried the drops and my protocol, and she lost similar amounts of weight but had more energy on my protocol, eating 800 to 1,000 calories a day. She lost 30 pounds in 60 days. And then as we transitioned her off the diet, she has lost 4.5 more pounds.
Nice.
And she's been maintaining for a couple months now, and she's ready to lose a bit more weight. So we're going to go into another round soon.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. So, and I have heard that as well, that on the higher calorie protocols, that there is very similar weight loss oftentimes for people. And, sometimes you won't know till you experiment with something and try it yourself. But it's nice to know that that's an option, especially as you said, if you're a more active person. That really makes sense to me. I mean, I have Hashimoto's too, and I have hypothyroidism, and I have other stuff too. So I don't think I'm really like the best example of like your normal average person, but I did feel like I couldn't exercise. I did do the 500 calorie when I did it. And I couldn't exercise. I mean, I felt like crap if I did that, like you said, and then you feel like you want to binge because you're overspent and your body is like, you've just done way too much for what you're taking in. And so it would kind of ruin what you had done,
Yeah. Well, then there's a tendency to overeat, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Physiologically driven to get more carbs, to get more energy. I think, people who are quite sedentary, they're better candidates for the 500 calorie protocol. But I would ask, because I'm such a huge fan of exercise, I think there are so many mental and physical benefits, and it prevents muscle loss too when you're in a big calorie deficit, and it's just better for your metabolism. But if you find yourself avoiding walking or doing normal activities, you have no energy to clean the house or grocery shop, or you may need to bump your calories. What happens is as we drop our calories, the body tries to conserve energy and reduce activity output. And so that's a sure sign that you are starting to shut down. And I think it's much better that if you eat more calories and then you walk for an hour a day or half an hour a day, get some activity in, you're going to burn a couple hundred calories just walking. And there's many, physical and mental benefits to that, especially when you're dieting. It helps with cortisol, it helps with sleep, it helps with hormone regulation, muscle, keeping your muscle, that kind of thing. So
yeah, no, I appreciate that you share that. And I think it's good for you guys to know like the different approaches that there are. And if you're going to do one approach, just to know what factors. It's like, if you want to be active on HCG, I actually get that question a lot. Can you exercise on HCG? Yeah. And I do have a whole series on that. So I'll link to that in the show notes too. But if you decide that you want to do that and you feel like you have the health for it, then as Adele mentioned, if you want to do that, you're going to probably have to increase your calories. It's like, you can't just like do one and then, then you'll feel like I did, which was like crap. So So knowing that, or like if you're going to stick with the 500, then you probably will need to cut back, depending on the state of your body.
Activity. Yeah. And if you do exercise, be realistic. I mean, you might find that your lifts go down a bit.
Right.
You can't push with the same intensity because you're in a cut. And that's true whether you're on any diet, as a weightlifter. When you're cutting, you just don't have as much to give in the gym. Just keep showing up, but don't expect, to be able to operate at the same level. And you may need to dial back a little bit of activity if you find yourself binging. Like if your weight loss is slowing down because you're overeating, because you're so active, then you need to dial that back. And that was part of my learning process. Okay, I'm not going to go for a huge hike this weekend because I think that's going to make me way too hungry.
Right.
And I
appreciate that too, because I feel like it's okay to designate certain short seasons of our life for certain purposes, and so, because sometimes I feel like we try to do it all at once, all the time, and it just doesn't, like, when you're growing, when you're trying to build muscle, you need extra calories essentially to build muscle. And so that's one purpose, but that's kind of contrary to reducing, like eating less to way less. It's like they're kind of opposite goals almost. So it's hard to do it all at one time, but we're always trying to do that. But you're going to achieve more if you kind of that's probably what I've never done like the cut and the whatever else. Yeah, I've never actually done that, but I read
Yeah.
about that. And so there's two purposes. It's like,
Yes.
and like you said, when you're in a cut, you realize that certain things are slightly put on hold a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back to that, and then that's your focus. And so I think more of us ladies need to be okay with that. Like, you're not failing because you're not doing it all at once, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
What's your priority, you know?
Yeah. And also because, like you said, since this is technically rapid weight loss, it's for 3 to 6 weeks. It's actually a very short period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, before you can kind of get back to maybe doing what you were doing. So
yeah. I couldn't give up my weightlifting though.
Yeah, I understand.
I accepted that I wouldn't be, you know, it wasn't a good time to be ramping up for a meet or competition or hitting any PRs and stuff. Yeah.
Sure, definitely. I think that's the only time I stopped CrossFit was the rounds. I started CrossFit after my 3rd round. And so I had 2 rounds after that, 4 and 5. Yeah. One was 3 weeks, one was 6. So, and it's been over 6 years now since I've been CrossFitting. And that 9-week period is the only time I've been at CrossFit 3 times a week. Other than that, the whole 6.5 years. It's like, nope,
I'm so curious. So those last 2 rounds you were CrossFitting. How did that impact your weight loss? And did you still stick with 500 calories?
No, that's what I mean is I did stop CrossFitting on those 2 rounds.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, because, or maybe I started CrossFit before my 3rd round. I'm trying to remember. No, it was my 4th. Yeah, because I didn't raise my calories. I have other health issues too. I have adrenal fatigue, and that's actually one of my concerns with anyone, even on like an 800 calorie, like if it's super intense, I've just seen people like it can exacerbate the condition. So you have to be careful. Mm-hmm. For me, I felt like that was the case. So for me, I just felt like it was better to take the break. But again, I didn't actually try a higher calorie. So I'm sure that would have helped looking back.
And more carbs actually might have helped your adrenals.
Yeah, for sure. So, but I was okay with it because again, 9 weeks out of 6.5 years, I'm fine with it, you know?
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So, but like you said, we're all different, and it's the mental thing that the weightlifting or the exercise that many of you ladies might do, whatever it is, it does a lot for us. And certainly if there's a way to do it and you want to, and then increasing your calories can achieve that in a successful way. And I think that's really smart. So yeah, actually this is what happened. My 4th round, I decided to try continuing CrossFit on Hcg. I went like, you know, on my loading day, because of course I'm eating extra, so that's fine. And then I CrossFitted, I don't know, VLCD 1 or 2 or 3, I can't remember. And I felt horrible, and I didn't lose weight for like 10 days after that. Even though I stopped the CrossFitting, I've never had a stall at the start of a round. You know how uncommon that would be, right?
The best week.
Exactly. No weight loss for like a week and a half.
Stretch your adrenals.
I was like, whoa, that was a bad decision. So from that, I was like, okay, I'm not doing it that way again.
Yes, totally understandable. I'm guessing you really taxed your adrenals. You were holding on. Yeah, your cortisol went up. So you were stalled.
And I think what's hard too is you tell yourself that you're going to ramp down the intensity of a workout. But the reality is you're in a group setting. And everyone's going, and the trainers, and you're just like, it's really hard to actually do that.
Yes, especially if you're a little bit competitive.
I know, and I am a little, so anyway.
I would like to also mention, like, so that people don't think that an 800 to 1,000 calorie protocol is only for people who are really active, because actually this client that I worked with who lost 30 pounds in 60 days, who thought she had a broken metabolism, all she did was walk for the first month. She doesn't work out at the gym or anything. She does now. We got her into the gym, but after it was over. But yeah, it's possible to still lose about a half a pound a day on more calories.
Yeah. No, and even I think too, possibly as you get leaner as well, it kind of can become a necessity. I've seen on occasion, like one gal I interviewed, I'll link to the interview, you guys. She did P3 to Life as well. But she was having a stall. She was going through a diet doc, and she called, and she was getting pretty small. She's really tiny. She's like a size 2 now. So
Wow.
she only had probably like 10 pounds left to lose, and she was having a stall for like 5 days or something.
Yeah.
And she called Diet Doc, and they actually recommended she increase her
Yes.
calories, which
Yeah.
was like having another serving of protein and maybe another veggie.
Yeah.
And she did start losing weight after increasing.
I know. I have some clients, I look at their food diaries and I say, okay, you need to increase your calories. And they really struggle with that mentally.
Right.
Then they increase them, then they lose weight the next day.
Yeah.
And, so it's very interesting. And I think it's just, you can stress your body out too much and retain water.
Yeah,
And
no, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So that's an option, you guys, is this higher calorie, which she goes into in her book as well. So you guys, again, that was the HCG Diet Fact and Fiction, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. But so the calorie protocol ended up being higher. So for your 6-week protocol, did you do around 1,200 calories that whole time then? Pretty much?
Yeah, and I bounced around a lot. I mean, on training days, I would eat more. I always would try to shoot for about 1,000, but it tended to be closer to 1,100.
Yeah.
It bounced around. I actually kept an Excel spreadsheet with the averages, but I don't have it to refer to right now.
That's good. That's fine. Yeah. And then aside from that, as an alternate way of doing things, you also ate other foods, right? Different.
That's right. Yeah.
So why don't you talk a little bit about maybe most of us are aware of what the Simeon's protocol list of foods is. But yeah, share what other foods you ate.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So I did the Simeon's protocol with the injections, and the only thing I didn't have that was off, or the only thing I had that was off protocol was a Diet Pepsi every day. And that's where I lost 17 pounds. And then as time went on, I started to loosen up, with the other rounds. And because I'm a strength athlete, protein's pretty important to me. And I've learned a lot more about nutrition since. So I just doubled my protein, and all protein sources were good. I just tried to keep them lean. So I would have egg whites, I would have non-fat Greek yogurt, I'd have shrimp, a lot of chicken breast, some canned. So very lean protein. I would also have like Jarlsberg light non-fat cheese you can get at Costco. Sometimes I'd have Carb Master milk, which is low carb, high protein milk. And I think it's about 60 calories a glass, and it's got about 12 grams of protein. And then as time went on, I just started eating whatever I wanted as long as it fit my macros. And again, that was, as long as I kept it under 100 grams of carbs, I would lose weight. And about 100 to 130 grams of protein a day. And then fats, like I said, were just from the protein sources. I didn't eat fats. So yeah, that was about it. I mean, I will admit there were times where I did have these odd cravings for some fats, and I'd have some nuts or something, but then I would try to keep my calories at where they should be.
That's good.
It's easy to go overboard with the fats and get a lot of calories quickly and not feel full. So protein was always my first priority. Lots of vegetables and fruit. But hey, I'd also have some protein pancakes with light syrup. I'd have some whipping cream with some light chocolate sauce.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's great. And you had a larger variety of vegetables too, right?
Oh yeah, I would always mix my vegetables. I often would have like an egg white frittata with spinach and tomatoes and mushrooms in it. And I'd bake a big one, cut it into 4, have it for 4 breakfasts, or a big pot of spaghetti sauce on Miracle Noodles. But sometimes I'd have a piece of sprouted bread, or I had some potatoes occasionally. Yeah.
That's cool. No, it's great to hear that. And some of you guys are going to be like, oh my gosh, she's so rogue. But as time has gone on, I know when I first did the protocol too, and I think like you said the same thing, you feel like if I deviate 1 iota from this original protocol and I eat a shred of bell pepper, I'm going to gain weight or have a 10-day stall, And then as time goes on, and of course everyone's different. I do believe there's a thing to food sensitivities that can play a role at times, and that's going to be so individual. Even with the P2 veggies on Dr. Simeon's list, I can't have cabbage, for instance, but Yeah, but it's good to realize that there can be more variety.
Yes.
A lot of the weight loss clinics now do use maybe what you might call updated protocols that involve a much larger list of vegetables, and they all lose weight really well. If you guys aren't familiar, I have my new phase 2 recipe site. It's hcgrecipes.com. And it utilizes a lot more vegetables. And you guys don't have to do that, but just so you know, I get lots of feedback, and people lose weight really well still utilizing other ingredients within the framework of macros and calories. So, yeah.
I think 60 years ago, they didn't have the same understanding of protein and nutrition that they do now.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of myths that have been, pervasive. And when I started, I was terrified of going off protocol and gaining weight or stalling. So I stuck with it. But with each round, I would experiment a little. I mean, I think I would have lost more weight if I hadn't been experimenting so much. But I'm kind of scientific by nature, and so I would see, this affected me this way. And you talk about food sensitivities, and I completely agree with you. I have a client, and I asked her to start having maybe try half a cup of cottage cheese before bed.
Yeah.
And because actually it's a casein protein, and it forms a bolus in your stomach, and as you sleep, it releases the amino acids to feed your muscles. And so not only is it a lean source of protein, but it actually nourishes your muscles while you sleep. So she tried it, and we noticed that she would stall. And so we took it away, and her weight resumed. And I said, well, that was one data point. Why don't we just try it once again, because it's so good to have this before bed. So she tried it again, same thing, stall. So it's like, okay, no bueno. And she said, well, wouldn't all dairy affect me? Should I just remove the yogurt in the morning? I'm like, no, you seem to be fine with yogurt. And she is, and to this day she has the yogurt, but not the cottage cheese. So.
That is so fascinating, isn't it? Yeah.
It is,
and well, because there's so many different elements too, like with dairy, for instance, I'm pretty allergic to whey and lactose, but not casein. My brother's the opposite. He's super allergic to casein.
That is wild.
Yeah, it's like he will break out so bad if he has even a little bit of casein. So for me, I can have harder cheeses because those have very little whey or lactose, so Parmesan, all that. But the more soft the cheese gets, the more whey there is, the more indigestion and like diarrhea I'll get and stuff.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so
I find this so interesting.
I know, it's weird. And especially because my brother are like the opposite. It's like I can have what he can, but it's just like so weird. So
Sometimes it's just that one little thing, This client was having a fermented cabbage juice in the morning, 15 calories. You wouldn't think it would do anything.
Yeah.
She thought it was helping her digestion. It was actually preventing her from losing weight.
Crazy.
So it's troubleshooting. And that's why I'm a big fan of tracking.
Yes.
Because you learn about your body that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I know even now that I'm in maintenance, as soon as I go over 150 grams of carbs a day, if I approach 200 and I keep doing over 200, I'm going to gain weight.
Yeah.
150, have great workouts, and I'll maintain. Under 150 grams of carbs, I'm going to start losing weight. And I love my carbs, so I kind of need to track them.
Yes, I was going to say, because so many women are afraid of carbs when it comes to maintenance and such in regular life. And I like what you said, tracking at least for a time. I feel like it does give you more freedom, because otherwise, to me anyway, when you just have no idea, then you kind of feel like you can't have anything, because you don't know at what point it's safe and when it becomes unsafe and too much, So you have that freedom up to 150.
Yeah. It's all data, right? And some people have different thresholds. Some people may find they gain weight at 125.
Right.
100. Some people will always do better on a lower carb diet.
Right.
I'm not an advocate of a keto diet for strength athletes, but it's finding that sweet spot. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Right. You can enjoy carbs. My clients are having chocolate every day, and they're losing weight. Yeah. It's possible, as long as you learn about your body and what your tolerances are, and that really comes from tracking the food.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I was so afraid to track for a long time. Yeah. I had a mental block with it for years. And I finally, a few years, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago now, I got inspired. I went to the CrossFit. I became a CrossFit level 1 certified trainer or whatever. I never did anything with it. It was really for my own knowledge. But while I was there, I got kind of inspired. One of the gals was like really, really cut, and she looked great. I'm like, oh, I want to look like her. So then I got inspired to track. She was like, you know, even you don't have to do it forever, but just track for a little while. You'll get an idea. And so finally I was like, okay, I think I am ready to try this. So I did, and it was wonderful because I don't track daily right now, but I know what I can have.
Yeah.
I know how many calories about the macros that I can have without gaining weight. So there's a lot of things that I eat in everyday life now that if I didn't know, I might get nervous. Like I'd be like, oh, I don't know if this meal's okay. Am I going to gain weight tomorrow? And I'd be nervous more frequently. But now I know like about, because I had tracked it for a while. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I don't need to worry about this, you know?
Totally takes the fear away.
It does, you know.
And that's why, you know, my client, when we were doing the HCG with what's called flexible dieting, she said for the first time in her life, she has no fears about regaining the weight.
Nice.
Because she's empowered now to know exactly what she needs to eat in order to maintain her weight for life, and she can eat whatever she wants.
I love that.
So she has to track for a while until things become more of a habit, because you tend to eat the same things over and over.
Yeah.
Now you can ease your foot off the gas pedal, stop tracking here and there, see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very freeing. You know, there's no bad foods. You do try to eat well, you know, with lots of fruits and vegetables, but there's room for treats.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, if you just, you know, even in, I share a little bit of this in my P3 to Life program. But we talk about that, about like, cause I get a lot of questions about, for instance, say you're traveling to Europe and they're like, I'm so scared. Like, what am I going to do for 2 weeks in Europe? And, you know, a lot of times you end up walking a lot, which helps. But one thing, and some of the ladies have come back and they were like, this worked so good. It's really about making choices. It's like, I just say, like, maybe pick your favorite thing that you want to indulge in. And then instead of indulging in all, like the wine, the gelato, and the bread, you pick your favorite for the day, right? You're like, which one do I really want? So you don't have to like not have anything. You pick one. So, okay, today I really want the glass of wine or whatever, or the gelato. And you have that, and then you're walking all day, and it works out. I've had ladies come back like, I can't believe I'm the same weight as when I left. And because they did that, they indulged, but they picked each day instead of just free for all or like complete, like nobody's going to really deny themselves on a trip to Europe. So, you know,
it would be wrong.
Yeah. So, but
that's really great advice for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. So, well, that's great to hear. So you can have different foods, you can try different calorie protocols successfully, as Adele and some of her clients experience. Do you want to maybe just talk a little bit about the whole idea of, because just speaking about the amount of weight loss, for instance, both you and I know that there's a lot of myths online talking about how much weight loss to expect and everything. And just, I'm always saying, like, I didn't know all this before either. So it's not, it's just honestly that we haven't been educated. And so when you read certain things and then it doesn't happen to you, you're like, what's wrong with me or whatnot, you know? So there's a scientific thing though. You're a science person too, behind how much fat you can like scientifically lose in a day. And it's not 1 pound. Unless you're like a marathon runner or something. I don't know. So why don't you talk about muscle loss and fat loss a little bit, or just stuff about that?
Yeah. Okay. Well, my mind's going in a lot of directions, so rein me in if I'm kind of
it's fine
on one topic. But I guess we could talk about dirty loads and clean loads and the expected weight gain, and also like water weight. And when people talk about the amount of weight they lost, I always want to know, does that include the preload? Because if they did a dirty load, which I always did dirty loads, I enjoyed eating the donuts and whatever I wanted. And I would do a 2 or 3 dirty load. I could gain 6, 7, 8 pounds on a dirty load. So that's mostly water weight. I would have about 5,000 calories a day. So a pound of fat is 3,500 calories. If I have 15,000 calories, that's going to be the equivalent of about 4 pounds.
Yeah.
So, you know, what would happen is on day 2, I might be down to 6.8 pounds lost. What is happening is when you have a whole bunch of carbs, you gain about 3 grams, you track 3 grams of water for every gram of carb, and that sort of clings to the carbs. And you put on a lot of water weight. And then as soon as you drop your carbs, the water just starts flushing out of your body. And so that first week looks fantastic on the scale.
Right.
It's really encouraging, but most of it is water weight. And when things slow down, you should actually be really happy, because that's when you have flushed out the water weight, and now we're talking about true fat loss.
Right.
And that may only be 2 pounds a week, but you're actually losing fat. And the fat is coming out through your respiration. I think about 84% comes out through respiration and perspiration, and some of it is urinated out. So your fat atoms are just expelled in the air, which makes me think, yes, maybe people do catch other people's fat and put it on, and breathe it in. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. But basically, your true fat loss is slow, and it takes 3,500 calories to burn through a pound of fat. And that fat is not actually, those fat cells do not get destroyed. They only shrink as the lipids come out, and they shrink in size. And so, does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah. No, that was very helpful. And just that maybe, so you're right. Like the first week, that's a good thing to clarify, that there is a lot of water weight loss in the first week. And that's why the numbers are so high, because like she explained the science there. And so, and then those ensuing weeks are your true fat loss, which is really good. But of course, we'll be smaller just scientifically, just because of what our metabolism is. And we are eating, we're not eating, so we are ingesting some calories. So to get to a 3,500 calorie burn for a 1 pound of fat loss, it's going to take, 2 or 3 days. So no, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, because let's say that your average calorie consumption, you need 2,000 calories a day to maintain your weight, and you drop down to 500 calories. So you're in a 1,500 calorie deficit. Well, if it takes 3,500 calories to burn a pound, that's 2.5 days.
Right.
To really burn through a pound of fat.
Yeah, exactly.
So now, what happens when you are losing weight is your body is a little indiscriminate. It will pull from fat stores, and it will also pull from muscle stores. And there is some thought that the Hcg hormone protects against muscle loss. I still need more data as proof of that. So I had some DEXA scans done before and after. It's looking like I lost muscle along with fat. I'm not sure. I just need more data to believe that you don't lose some muscle.
I understand. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, show me the test results, because I've done the same thing. I'm curious, what's the timing of when you did your after DEXA? Like, did you do it right at the end of phase 2, or like partway into phase 3?
So I did one before round. So just before I started the Hcg pellets, and then after. I did a test before and after. Now, it showed I had lost some pounds of muscle, but there are some caveats to that. For example, like when you drop your carbs so low, you lose a lot of glycogen, and so when you lose the glycogen, it can look like muscle loss, and it isn't necessarily muscle loss. As soon as you bump up your carbs, the glycogen stores get replenished in your muscle and liver, and now it looks, you kind of plump out, and now it looks like you have more muscle than you do. So also how hydrated you are can affect the results. And what type of testing method that you're using. I mean, I use DEXA scans, which are supposed to be the most accurate and precise next to hydrostatic weighing. I found the variance was up to 7% between the bioimpedance scan and the DEXA scan, which is huge, because that puts you in a different category.
Yeah.
But, the data is still out. Like the science says you're going to lose muscle when you lose fat. It's pretty clear on that.
Yeah.
But there isn't enough research with the Hcg hormone. And I do think like genetics play a role. Some people are more catabolic, which means they, destructive of tissue when they go into a diet, and they can lose more muscle than other people. If you're working out, you can preserve more muscle. If you're eating more protein, you can preserve more muscle. So I was basically doing everything I could to preserve my muscle by eating more protein, by working out, eating a little higher calories, because in my mind, according to the science, I was going to lose muscle. I just wanted to limit that loss.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I agree with that. Like there's going to be some, but like you said, the percentage, I can share a little bit. I don't know if you know any of, so I've had hydrostatic done before and after every single round and in between rounds. And I've probably had at least 10 tests over the last 6 years, maybe more. So this is a little bit of interesting stuff. And I know I'm only one person, so that's not necessarily proof of anything, but because of that testing, I do honestly feel like it does preserve muscle.
Yeah.
Here's why. So like you said, water, like glycogen stores in water on hydrostatic testing and DEXA scans do read as muscle, like as lean mass, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's how they read. So like my third round, I had was it my third round? My fifth round is, it's starting to be so long ago that but anyway, so one round I didn't eat the fruits on phase 2. Of course, I didn't eat the Melba and all that. So it was a very low carb as a result. And I lost a lot of glycogen stores.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to phase 3, as you said, glycogen stores, they come back the moment you have any carbs, even if it's vegetables, like, you know what I mean? It's just going to come back. So I had my testing maybe right after phase 2, like pretty close after that.
Yeah.
And had a certain percentage of fat loss and muscle loss. And then I retested like 2 weeks later, and I had gained several pounds because I gained 7 pounds in 3 weeks after the end of the round.
Totally normal, probably mostly glycogen.
Yeah, and it was.
Yeah.
So I went and retested, and suddenly after like 4 workouts, I had gained like 5 or 6 pounds of muscle. So that's when I realized, like, okay, that's not possible. First of all, as far as muscle fiber goes.
Yeah.
So that was just glycogen stores. And what that shows is that my true ratio of fat loss to muscle loss was different once I had been in P3 and had my glycogen stores and my hydration levels normalized. I think that's a more accurate representation, right, of your fat loss and muscle loss, because losing excess water is not, you didn't lose muscle, like you didn't damage your body. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you didn't. And losing glycogen, you didn't damage your body.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So for people who don't know what glycogen is, it's basically what you do. Your body converts the carbohydrates into glycogen as an energy source, and it puts it in your liver and it puts it in your muscles to draw on for workouts or just energy. And but when you drop your carbs, it pulls out from those and feeds off of the glycogen stores. And when you kind of tap those out, now you're going to be lighter. You may also find workouts more fatiguing because you don't have any glycogen to back up your workout. But it's not fat and it's not muscle. It's just stored energy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so I think that's fascinating. But anyway, after I did the follow-up testing, and I've had this with other ones too, the ratio for me was like 88% fat, 12% muscle, which
that's awesome.
It is. And I must also clarify, I was completely sedentary for 6 weeks. Honestly, I feel like I would have that much muscle loss purely from just being sedentary and not working out, even if I was eating 2,000 calories a day. You know what I mean?
And that is a really good point, because they've shown that when I really do need to go research this some more. And this is kind of the next thing that I'm going to be reading about. But I believe that if you just diet for a few weeks or you don't exercise for a few weeks, you don't really start pulling from your muscles. But again, I need to verify that. But it's my understanding, for example, if I'm a weightlifter, because I used to be really scared if I went on vacation, what happens to my muscles? And not much really happens for about 3 weeks. And then you actually start losing muscle. But if you're bedridden, you start losing muscle immediately. But if you're just walking around doing everyday things and eating enough calories, you're not supposed to lose that much muscle.
Yeah.
If any. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was glad that I did that testing, because for me, it made me feel like I don't know. I just felt like that was a pretty high ratio of fat loss for such a low calorie diet, because I was eating the 500. I wasn't like that overweight by the time I got, down to my later rounds.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, and I'll also mention another thing, which I'd never realized before either, is that if you're very overweight, you will likely lose a higher percentage of muscle. And it honestly makes sense because you gain more muscle to accommodate your heavier weight. When you're out there. So for instance, when I started the diet, I had 111 pounds of lean mass.
Yeah.
Now, when I was a teenager and I was thin, I weighed 105 pounds total.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So when you gain weight, you actually have excess muscle for your frame size.
Yeah.
And there's no way that you have to lose muscle to get to a normal body fat percent for your height and your frame size. Otherwise, like for me, if I had lost none, I would have like no fat on my body and I'd be dead. Like my body fat percent would be like 3%. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a certain point where it's going to be a natural thing to lose to a certain point. And then at that point, I feel like my body did conserve muscle once I got to a normal amount of muscle for my height and, based on activity level too. So I don't know. I just thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the fact that you did those tests is fantastic. I have to read up on those. Very curious.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's so fun. I don't honestly, just because I used to be a fit person and I've always been really into fitness, I too was very concerned about muscle loss on the diet. That was like, I didn't want to lose muscle. And so I guess that's what made me go do because that was the first hydrostatic body fat test I had ever done, was right before my first round. And I'm like so glad to this day that I did that, because I don't really know what drove me exactly. Yeah. But now it's been nice to be able to track that over the years and, all that
it's
stuff.
A benchmark.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's just my own little personal experience for why I personally do believe that it helps with that. Because like, for instance, the technician who does the body fat testing that I go to, he said that for ladies doing, for instance, Weight Watchers, which to be honest, I don't know what like the macro ratio is, but I don't think it's necessarily a low carb diet. Is it? Is it like?
I don't know what it is, to be honest. I did do Weight Watchers, and interestingly enough, I did a long time ago. I didn't lose a pound, not a single pound in 10 weeks, and I was 100% compliant.
Oh gosh, that's terrible.
But I think that was more of my hormones, like my thyroid. I think I was just under medicated for a lot of years.
Gotcha, yeah.
And unless your hormones are, in decent shape, it's an uphill battle to lose weight.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, so the technician with those, he'd have ladies come in from doing Weight Watchers and with their body fat testing, and he told me that it was very typical for them to have 50% fat loss and 50% muscle loss.
Oh, wow, because they're not active.
Yeah, probably that. And then also, and I was thinking like, well, could that be glycogen stores? But I don't think Weight Watchers is really low calorie or low carb enough to be drawing from glycogen stores as part of a cause. Could be, I don't know.
Well, I don't think they're following a high protein diet either. And a high protein diet in like long range studies of people who have kept weight off for a long period of time, like years, they had two things in common. One is they were following a high protein diet, and two, they classified themselves as highly active. So those are two things you really want to do if you want to maintain your weight loss for life. Bump up the protein, be more active.
That's nice.
A lot of people undereat their protein and they don't realize, and yet it keeps you feeling full. It prevents muscle loss. I mean, there's so many good things to eating more protein and different sources of protein. Don't just eat red meat, because that's not super healthy to eat red meat all the time, or processed meat.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's so true. I actually, those are two things that I do. So I do eat higher protein and I do CrossFit. So I don't know, because it's been 5.5 years that I've been maintaining. So I think that does help. And I agree with the high protein. The research I had done on that as well was that it provide a certain level of satiety, like where you don't kind of feel the need to keep snacking. So, and women especially do tend to eat not enough protein. So
that's right. We tend to be more carb driven.
Yeah, so that's good. Well, thank you for all that. Is there any other things you want to share before we wrap up?
I would just say, if people want to be successful on this, they really need to be in the mental and physical space to give it 100%.
Yeah.
You have to be ready. I mean, I've had failures, I've had stops and starts. Persevere, but at some point, you know, maybe it's just not time for you. If you're really flailing, you could reach for a coach like myself, or go to your website, because I found your website very inspiring.
Thank you.
It would help, you know, keep me on track. I would go to YouTube videos and watch those, and that really helped inspire me. I probably watch one a day. And troubleshoot things, you know, just troubleshoot things. I think that there is a solution out there if you just try to figure yourself out, and don't be too afraid of doing it wrong, you know?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Exactly. We can't expect for it to be perfectly right every single day on the journey, because part of it, like you said, is troubleshooting, and that requires at times some experimentation where you just won't know. You won't know that cottage cheese at night is making you not lose weight. Like, you're like, thought you were doing the protocol. Like, or yeah, you won't know if your calories are actually too low for you until you just try a day or two and be okay with, like, hey, the experiment might go awry. Maybe I'm going to gain weight or not lose, but sometimes it's worth a day or two of that risk. Sometimes it's worth it because it actually may turn out better.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
So yeah, I love that. Well, so you guys, sometimes we do well, like some of you guys are fine being more independent, just utilizing my website, and all that. And you guys know that we answer your emails and all that, as they come in, but we are limited with what we can do since it's free, and, and I only work part-time and all that stuff. So, Adele does one-on-one coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I think both for the HCG protocol and then even maybe for beyond, you know, right?
That's right. Well,
maintenance or whatever.
So I won't take anybody just to help them lose weight, actually, because I don't feel I've achieved my goal, which is to help people keep their weight off for life. So I will help you through phases 1 and 2 and 3 and beyond into real life, so that you feel like, I've got this now. I know what to do so I can keep this weight off for the rest of my life.
That's great. So if someone's interested in having more one-on-one accountability, which some of you guys do really well with, where should they go, or how should they get in touch with you?
Okay, well, they can email me at coachingwithadele@gmail.com. And Adele is spelled Adele.
Adele.
Yep, like the singer.
A as in apple.
Yeah.
D as in dog. ELE. Okay.
Yeah. So coachingwithadele@gmail.com, and I'm building a website right now, but that'll be adelefrizzell.com.
AdeleFrizzell.com.
Yeah.
We'll have that in the show note links, you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, and you can also have a look at my book on Amazon. It's $4.99. It's only available in digital right now. But yeah, I'm happy to do a free one-on-one consultation, and anyone who is listening to this podcast and emails me with subject line HCG Chica will get 10% off my coaching.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know about that. That's awesome. Did you guys hear that? So, or see that or read it? So you get 10% off of whatever, something of the coaching with Adele, if you end up doing that from hearing it on here. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
That's great. Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful.
The first session is free. So yeah,
very cool.
Feel free to reach out.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's because sometimes we need that extra step, you know, at least maybe for the first part of our journey anyway, until we kind of feel like we got a groove on things.
Yeah. And I think it helps to have somebody who can troubleshoot with you.
Yeah.
The accountability, the support, and the troubleshooting helps.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And it can kind of maybe expedite the finding of the solution, you know? Yeah. So it's like maybe you would have figured it out, but it might have taken you 2 weeks of suffering and no weight loss instead of like 2 days. So yeah. Well, very good. Thank you so much. So we'll have all of that in the show note links. AdeleFrizzell.com. She's building her website, but her email was coachingwithadele@gmail.com. And her book is The HCG Diet, Fact and Fiction. So we'll have all that in the show note links. So thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was a joy to speak with you today.